depending on age, of course. So 1 pound of nitrogen per year. So if you went to Home Depot and you saw that you had 10, 10, 10 fertilizer, if you wanted 1 pound of nitrogen per year, and it was 10, 10, 10, how many pounds of that fertilizer would you need?
2.
Nope.
Nitrogen.
No, you need 10.
No, you need, well, you need
I heard
10,
10.
5, and 15, like you said, but you need...
You'd need 10 pounds. Because what that 10, 5, 10 is it's basically a percentage. By weight, that means if there was 100 pounds of that fertilizer, there would be 10 pounds of nitrogen in it. So that throws you off. So be real careful about that, because you may end up under fertilizing. Now you don't want to over fertilize as well. You know, you go to that little guide that I talked about, there's going to be all kinds of pictures of over fertilized bananas that are unhealthy. There's all kinds of pictures of under fertilized bananas that are unhealthy. This guy, he's probably, this area right here, probably a bit deficient in potassium actually. When he first started, he had plenty, he was putting out really good yields. Then as you go along, if you look at the yields of the bunches coming, they're getting less and less. And that's because I'm still working out how to get potassium in a sustainable manner. If anyone has great ideas, I'm all for it. Now what I'm doing, the way I fertilize here, those that don't know, guess what the best fertilizer is? Best organic fertilizer. Yep.
Urine.
Yes.
You're not going to show us, are you?
Hell yeah, I am. For the video. This is the best fertilizer you don't have to buy. This is, if anyone wants to sell yours.
It is. No, it is.
It's alright, it's just me.
Is it better if it's older?
I don't know. I don't know that it changes. Does anyone know? Does it?
Oh yeah.
So how's it change?
Well, from what I've understood and I've experienced, the color change, but what happens is you introduce the ammonia and it goes through the same cycle as the aquaponics people. Ammonia has a little thing called nitrites, and then the nitrites turn into nitrates, and that's where your nitrogen comes from. So the older it is and the darker it is, it means it's been through that cycle more so.
So it's better to age it first?
That's what they say on the
Like wine?
aquaponics.
Interesting.
4 to 6 months is what they're calling for, and I definitely see that it starts out that color, but by the time it's 4 to 6 months old, it's probably more like his Phillies, or even a darker color than that.
Huh.
Yeah.
And it's
Because I use it at our
Well,
base.
at the same time, I've read that you don't actually wait until
Some people
it changes
speak
into ammonia. You use it right away, because
I think you could.
the nutrients right there. You don't want to waste, like they change into something that you actually lose nutrients if you wait.
I would think that if you go by nature, nature would pee right on it right at one time. So if you're going to go
Right.
with nature, you would go with right away.
What I do is when I don't want to come outside, it goes in that bottle. Otherwise, I just trade around to different bananas and I go directly on it. Now, with bananas, you pretty much can go directly on it. If it's a new planting, I probably would not, or at least I'd go well out within the mulch. But I can go directly on these and it asks for more. Most plants, that's not true. You need to dilute it to around 9 to 10 to 1. I personally don't put it on my lettuce and stuff like that, 'cause that's not how I roll, but to each their own.
Well, I gotta tell though, I mean, for veggies, it makes miracle. If you dilute it to like 1 to 5, or more like 1 to 7 or something, not at 10, it just does miracles to your veggies. It just you can see the change right away.
As far as yield goes, how do they calculate yield? By the pound, by the stalk, by the piece,
By the pound.
by the pound, and how many pounds would this yield per year?
The one that I just took off was a 65-pound bunch.
Wow.
And would you calculate that yearly? I mean,
Well, the stalk's dead after it grows.
Yeah, it
You
only
don't use it,
only
so it
fruits
gets
one time and then it's dead.
It's only a one-time yield, right?
Yes,
Yeah, but
But
no, I mean,
per plant. Yeah, one time per
everything
plant.
from that, like with peaches, they go by the pound per year.
Right.
How about
That's how you
Echo
can tell.
guys? Have you guys had experience with Namos?
Then you cut the
Now
whole
mine's
thing down
from
and
Thailand.
put it in
Echo.
bananas one time.
And
We don't calculate it quite like, with the poundage. I guess we would look more in the how many hands that we would be able to get out of a bunch or out of a plant. And it would be on a clump basis, basically, that people would be looking. Except on a commercial. I've never been around commercial banana production. It's always been small farm situations. The thing is, though, if we were in Asia, there would be no part of this plant above ground that would go to waste. We would be using it either for mulch. The stems could be used for animal feed. The blossom from the namwa is eaten raw or eaten in salads or eaten in curries, so that would be harvested. It's quite astringent, but it's still an edible. The leaves would be used as plates or animal feed as well. So you'd be looking at the entire plant as an asset.
The leaves, what kind of animals eat the leaves?
Cows love them.
I can tell you chickens love them because they destroyed one of our plants.
Yeah, they love the pups for sure.
They took enough leaves to kill my one plant.
Yeah, chickens, goats, rabbits. It's not the most high protein crop that you're going to be able to feed animals, but it is still worthwhile as far as feeding goes.
I have a question, David. Did I hear somebody say that this entire tree or stalk here only produces one time?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why I ran for this, to kind of showcase that. Basically, 4 days ago, I took the bunch off of this and I saved it for you guys. So part the seeds a little bit there. It seems really sad and brutal, but literally, once it goes.
Watch out!
Surprise! So it cuts through really easy, obviously. So then what I'll do when I have more time, is I'll cut that up. Now I'm going to try feeding it to my chickens, see who likes what. But then I'm going to put that around my bananas because I want to send those nutrients back into the soil for the others in the clump.
And you're going to wear
Dinner is
clothes
served.
when you cut this up.
And that right there is
That sap is very staining.
Really?
So every time the sap gets on your clothing, it seems like every time you wash it, the stain gets darker. My wife has yelled at me over so many of these, so you need to wear old clothes.
Good tip.
now when you take that bunch of bananas right there, you have to cut that. You cut that whole thing off.
You don't have to,
No,
but it's
right.
just taking nutrients away from the other
Right.
clump.
But that'll be. And how many pounds is that? That's.
That's probably going to be around 50.
And that took 20 months to grow this. You know.
Less than that. The very first mother was planted around 20 months ago.
Right. That's it.
Yeah, this is just a very fast growing, very prolific.
Now you just leave that cut off right there where it is. You just cut
Do
it.
you have to
I
do
do.
anything to that stump, like to protect, to get it so it doesn't? Oh, okay.
I actually want it to rot back and start to feed the others. Now that's just what I've read. Whether this is best practice or not, I don't know.
Okay, so it won't go like disease into the other
Oh
plants.
yeah, you can just take a machete and just slice it.
It's all leaves basically.
It's
Right.
really nice for you.
Yeah, it's fast.
Well, what
Mostly
what
water.
can happen
They're
is
either
actually
really
they start
strong or
rolling it
really
out.
It's very, very easy. You know, there's no bark. It's just like an herb.
My only question about what you said, in nature they would just pee right there. But my question is, how do we know that the plant is even taking it up right away? There's so much bacteria in there. You could be going through that cycle of the ammonia to nitrite to nitrate before it even goes into the root in the soil.
When you say, well,
I'm saying just because you pee on it right away doesn't mean it's taking it up right away that's most beneficial. It could still go through that aging process, and it might not use the nutrients until
Might
months
not be
later.
used right away.
That's my that's my only question on that. Why there's the two different theories of people.
I have no idea.
We're gonna have to Google it.
But urine, it's extremely high in nitrogen. You have your urea, which is basically, I think, 43% nitrogen. It's got your phosphorus. It's kind of low levels of phosphorus. It's got potassium, higher levels of potassium. Obviously, it's going to be different for everyone. Those of us that are unhealthy go to the doctor, and there's either high levels of potassium or low levels, stuff like that. So everyone's going to be a little bit different. But then all the micronutrients that your body's flushing out as well are going in. So urine is just a phenomenal fertilizer. But for bananas, you're going to probably be giving them, depending how much you urinate, you're probably going to give them all the nitrogen that they need, theoretically. They're probably going to be deficient in potassium. I personally am starting to play with like green sand and other OMRI approved methods of potassium. But if anyone knows any really sustainable ways of getting potassium into the soil, I'm all ears.
Poo. Poo is good too.
What?
Poo.
It's really not.
It is.
Well, it's like horse manure, you know. Horse manure is about 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. So basically, if this guy needs, say, 1 pound of potassium per year at 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, that means you need 200 pounds of horse manure per year.
That's not a problem.
I mean, it's
I
great
put
to
out
add.
5 to 10 pounds of human manure a day.
You're eating way something. You know, it's great to add it. You know, it conditions the soil. There's nutrients. The worms love it. I mean, I'm not saying don't add it, but if you're only relying on horse manure, you better be adding a whole lot of it.
I said human manure.
Okay, so let's go somewhere.
I have a
There's a
question
couple of
before
other-
you. Can I just ask one more quick question? When you said if you go and you buy the nitrogen, which is equal to the phosphorus, is it going to hurt it by having too much phosphorus?
They actually can. That guide that I mentioned will talk about that, where if you have too much like phosphorus, it actually inhibits, I think it's calcium for being uptaken.
Because if you're getting 10, 10, 10, then you're actually getting too much phosphorus.
Yeah, don't get 10, 10, 10. I'm not saying
Yeah,
get 10. I was just using that as an example.
Okay.
And that guide's phenomenal because they talk about if you add too much of this, then these nutrients aren't uptaken properly.
Okay.
If you add too little of this, then these nutrients. It's really, really good. It helps. It'll also help you see which nutrients that you're deficient in. In fact, we're going to see that in one of the plants that we're going to walk
Okay.
by. That's potassium deficient.
I can point out one more thing if you want to make more use. If you've
No,
got
no.
earthworms,
No, he
you
said,
cut
he said the
the
Omri
trunk
approved.
up very
They can
thinly
improve
into slices and put it over your earthworm
for
pile or
growing.
whatever you're
Omri
using to
is
raise
good.
your worm. The worms love that. It'll break down. It'll be a great source in case you don't have enough
Somebody
vegetable
researching.
scraps and such.
American,
And if you
it's
really
by
want to
organic.
show off,
Oh, is that all?
you've got these
Yeah.
great
Oh,
big
and
trunks here, and they're wonderful. You can
Yeah,
actually
very
bore
much.
holes into
Sort of
these
similar.
trunks, maybe that big around and that deep, put in some potting soil and grow things in there, and that's a great way to show off. Or in this one, you could even make it into a little bit of a, a decomposable planter.
Plotter?
For bananas.
So he's saying leave it sideways and then put the holes.
You could either do
along
holes
that.
over it or make a big
trough in it.
slot in it as a planter.
I want to make my bananas cannibals. That's
That's
awesome.
such a cute idea.
Steve, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
Well, he answered it. What was Omri? You mentioned that. I don't know what.
Oh, I forget what it